In this video, we are going to complete the full set of Genshin gliders. The last video, we covered the feathers and the ornamental pieces that go on top. So, there will be more cutting of the foam, gluing the pieces together, painting the details, and makeshifting, combining everything into a workable cosplay set. I'm not too sure, but we'll figure it out. So we'll be focusing on the centerpiece that sits on the back, and then we'll do the framework that attaches all the pieces together. I actually want the gliders to fold down, so we'll have to figure something out once the pieces are complete. Just like in the previous video, we'll start off with thin sheets of EVA foam underneath the printed sheets. So using a needle, we'll trace each individual part of the print. With the foam sheets being underneath the paper, there will be a pattern for us to follow. All of the templates for this build will be in the description below. Using a white pen or pencil, you can just trace these little dots to make the shapes a bit clearer for you to see, and then we'll cut it out once all the pieces are drawn. So here are all the pieces, but I forgot a centerpiece that goes right in the center jewel that you'll see on the template. It is there, I just forgot to cut it out. It's time to glue the pieces together. I use this contact adhesive that you would usually use for leather because it is really flexible and it works really well. And yet again, there is a lot of painting ahead. First, I want to start with a white base where all the lighter colors will be. Remember to keep a reference close by. After the white base, I'm going to start with all the orange pieces, starting with a base orange color. And then I'm going to add a very watered down yellow where all the highlights will be. This will give it a jeweled effect. After the yellow highlights, I'm going to add a watered down paint grey. This will create the shadows and in doing so, create a more 3D effect. So this is my favorite part, where you would add that just a little bit of extra highlights with a watered down white. I realized that this project has a lot of painting involved. Now that all the orange pieces are done, we can start with the metallic-y pieces. I'm not too sure what material these are, but they look sort of metallic. Starting with a very dirty grey. So basically, to make this grey, you add a bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of Paints grey, and cream. Now I'm just adding shadows to the lower layers that you can see on the reference photo. On these lower layers, there are also sort of textures like levels, and I'm just going to paint those in instead of making them. You do this by using watered down Paints grey again, and then adding layers where the darker shadows will be, and then moving toward a lighter color using less Paints grey. I'll also be using the same method for the top layers, creating more shadows just to give it that more metallic 3D look. I noticed on the reference that on the lower layers there is a brown tint, so I'm just going to add that in as well. So after all the shadows, we are going to add white highlights again. And now it's time for the centerpiece. I'll use navy blue for the base. And then using a watered down white for all the highlights. You can build up your highlights by adding more and more layers to the certain spots that are brighter than the rest. The highlights always finishes off a piece nicely. Okay, that was a lot of painting. Some might even say too much. Alright, so now that all the pieces are painted and glued, we can start by building the frame. Honestly, I like to reuse a lot of the items I have around the house, just scrap materials and such. So to build the frame for the wings, I'm using PVC skirting that you would use to store cables. So it's that little skirting board that you would usually use to keep cables in. I've bent and shaped the first one so long, but I'm going to show you how I did it. So we're going to heat up a little spot and then just bend it up straight, and then we're going to heat the center part where you will see where the wings bow out. You're going to heat up that part and slowly start bending it into a curve. Just be careful as you will be working with very hot PVC, and also try to work in a place where there's a lot of ventilation, as it does give off fumes. I'd recommend using a mask. So I had more PVC cable strips, but this one is a lot thicker and more square, so I think it would work really nicely for the back piece. So I'll be using the handles of old paintbrushes as I find they are very sturdy and I don't like to waste, and I'll cut them into little pieces that actually fit into this square PVC tube. And my plan is to have these thinner ones almost like a bracket inside of this one, so it would be able to fold down and up. So in order to make these wings wearable, I'm going to add these very strong nylon strings, and I'm going to glue them to the center of this block. So I'm using a very strong 2-part epoxy to glue these ropes to the base. To prep the PVC for the glider pieces, I have to sand it first, just to make the surface rough so that the glue can actually adhere to it better. I'm just painting some of the PVC pieces black so it's not as noticeable. So to glue the glider pieces to the PVC, I'm going to use the contact adhesive again. Now it's time to sand the frames for the wings. Don't be shy with the sanding, just keep going at it and make it as rough as you can. Alright, so the tricky part begins. To glue the wings to the frames, I'm going to do piece by piece. So I'm going to add a bit of glue towards the end first, just to position it nicely, and then I'll stick it on there. I've drilled a hole at the end of the PVC, but before that I first cut it an inch from the foam, and then I sort of rounded off the end piece of the PVC. So using the wooden pieces, I'll thread them in the holes I've drilled on the wing frames. Then glue the wooden pieces inside of the centerpiece with strong 2-part epoxy. And then just to cover up the frame a bit, I'm just going to paint it black. I'm adding an elastic band on each end of the wings. The purpose of these is to lift the wings whenever you want to show them off. So it is finally done. Honestly, I am very proud of myself for finishing this project. It's not always easy to complete some art projects, then they just get left undone and sit in the corner of shame. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. I would appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe to help out the channel. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below.